what are your experiences or assumptions people make about you as a student with disabilities? And I think that for me personally, I usually don't let many people know because I know I've talked about it previously, but um, kind of afraid of people judging me, or once they find out, they're going to treat me differently. And I think one of the big things we're going to hit on today is people want to have that support network, but at the same time, they don't want to be treated any differently. And I think that will be a recurring theme today throughout our session. So
Some assumption, like sometimes people assume that a person with a disability may like have a wider range of things that they have a hard time with than just their one struggle. And I think it's really important to have educators learn about specific disabilities. And even though each person with that disability is going to be different, it would be great, especially about the person in their class, like learn about their disability so they can not make those assumptions that maybe they can't do this well, even though they have a disability, that they have this one struggle and maybe they have strengths in other areas.
for sure, yeah. Thank you, Madeline. Avery?
One assumption that I've always had to fight and prove wrong is that I'm not intelligent, so to speak, when learning in my education, or I'm not independent because I require some assistance. They just think that I'm not able to do things for myself, and for 17 years I've been trying to prove that wrong, and I hope that I have succeeded.
Can I just say one more thing?
Yeah, go
Just
ahead.
like what you guys were saying about like assuming intelligence, I think some people who assume our intelligence is just scared to admit and believe that we are smarter than we seem, and that we can be smarter than we are as smart as the next person. So
What challenges have you experienced at school as a student with a disability?
with my IEP, some of the things are I get breaks when I need them. I get longer like assignments, like more time for assignments. And so being judged for having those longer assignment times, or for getting those extra breaks and missing those plans, make people think that I'm not as smart because I'm missing those plans, or being called out in class for having a learning difference, or having to explain why I need those accommodations, or getting like embarrassed, like you said, like you and Sam both said, getting embarrassed for having to talk with the teacher about it in front of everybody. And so those are just some of the things I've experienced.
Avery?
One issue that I've always had throughout my education career is my physical education classes are meant to be adaptive, and because of my disability, I couldn't even do some of the exercises that I was given. For example, I was given jumping jacks and push-ups, and obviously I can't do that. So it was very hard to perform at my best when I wasn't given proper exercises.
And the next question is, what might you need or want from adults in or around your school?
Teachers in general, sometimes they don't realize what you're going through if you have a disability, and then and you're you know show the teacher of what you're like hiding, because they can assume, oh, you're just not trying, you're not good at it, but they don't know that you have a disability. And that's kind of the sad thing about not having enough support and a lot more assumption from the teachers.
Thank you, Sam. Madeline?
From teachers, I would like more honest support, because sometimes when I'm doing something that I know is challenging for me, and I can tell that it's something I really struggle with, they're like, wow, that was so great. And it kind of makes me feel worse in a way because I can tell they're just pretending to make me feel better, and it makes me feel kind of like they think that I'm not as intelligent as I am, like I don't understand that I have a hard time in that area. And I would love to get compliments, like anyone would love to get compliments if they're honest and we actually did do a good job, and just support like that. And also I think that since a lot of times I see kids being teased or bullied and the teachers don't really step in, and I think that if it's true bullying, not just like for not, and if it's not just that everyone is having like being lightly teased and it's fun for everyone, then the teacher should really step in, because that can be really serious if a kid is seriously bullied. So yeah. Me too.
Avery?
Yeah, definitely.
I have two. One being my teachers expect me or the students in my class to be social with the general ed students, but then again, I feel like the school is divided between special ed and general ed. So how do you expect us to be social if you don't let us explore and go speak to people? And um, another thing is that I'm a very independent person, but I see kids around me that need more assistance. Therefore, I believe that there needs to be more people in classrooms to help children, because there's 11 kids and only three people to help. So, aides. I forgot the word, what they're called, but I don't think there's enough people to assist children that need it more than I do.
Abby?
Definitely, I definitely agree with what Avery was saying and Madeline was saying about having, instead of separating us from the general ed population in our schools, having those aides in the general ed population to help the students with the learning differences, instead of separating us between classes. Like, this is your class because you need an aide, and this is your class because you don't need an aide, because that definitely will want us to desocialize and just close ourselves off from the world, and not have, like, you separating me, so now I don't know how to socialize in the right way. Or having those honest compliments, because I've got a lot of like fake compliments in my life about those jobs I've done and how they were so amazing, and I'm just like, they weren't that good. And so I definitely having those honest opinions and compliments would definitely help and make people feel safer and more open with themselves. So yeah.
And just if we're treated like everyone else, but with support.
Some teachers want to tell all the special ed students, you need a bigger challenge. You need to get out of your comfort zone and take on the real world. But then they're still setting the standards low in their classes and their education, and it kind of just make it worse when they do something like that. So
I would like to add to that, because one of my goals in my IEP is to be independent in the so-called real world, but I don't understand how, if you shield special ed children and then once we graduate, you're like, okay, go ahead and go live your life. You don't give us exposure, so that seems hard.
Yeah, just like you guys are saying, it's kind of hypocritical, especially since you tell us we can do anything we put our minds to, but then not showing us how to achieve what we put our mind to because you're not letting us socialize or showing us how to stick to what we put our minds to. And even if we don't stick to what we put our minds to, just like showing us how to socialize and get to where we need to get to stick to what put our minds to what we believe in.
One thing I wanted to hit before we get into the Q&A was I know Sam brought up his sister isn't diagnosed with anything, but sometimes she does struggle with certain things. And that was one more thing I wanted to bring up is that somebody might not have a disability, or they might have a disability, but they are going undiagnosed. Especially, I know as Jessica had brought up, students of certain like socioeconomic or racial backgrounds tend to go more undiagnosed relative to peers of different socioeconomic and racial status or factors. And so one thing is that please make sure you watch out for that. And if you see anything like that, don't be afraid to use resources, talk to them personally, bring parents in. You know, I think a lot of teachers conclude that, you know, if a student is kind of not doing very well, you know, they're just not trying or they're not applying themselves. And I think there might be something deeper going on there. So